We're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say, you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Todd Newcomb, and welcome to another session of Bucknell Field Hockey Through the Decades. While the field hockey program may have been around at Bucknell prior to this decade we're going to speak to tonight, it was more so in a club fashion. This is the first decade where field hockey was a varsity program. It's the 1970s, and we have some great guests on the call tonight, along with head coach Jeremy Cook and one of our rising seniors, Kaylin Long. I want to thank Geisinger, our sponsor for this, and for everything they do and have done during the pandemic and all they do to keep us safe and our student athletes. We really appreciate Geisinger and all that they do for us. I want to take a second to introduce our guests, and after I do that, I'll turn it over to Coach Cook and to Kaylin, and they'll ask the questions, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So our first guest from the class of 1976 is Karen Tropp. Karen was the team captain in 1975, and she also led it for the basketball team in 1975. Our next guest is Irene Stein from the class of 1977. She was the team captain in 1976. She earned 3 letters as a member of the basketball team, where she was a 2-year captain in that sport as well. She won the Bison Club Award as a senior. Our next guest is from the class of 1979. And again, I'm using maiden names here for this purpose because you will recognize them more so probably by their maiden name than their married name. So our next guest is Karen Wegner from the class of 79. She's also a Bucknell parent. Her son went to Bucknell, graduated in 2014. Karen was a team captain in both 1977 and 1978. She holds a share of the single games points record at 9 and goals record at 4. She holds the school record for consecutive games scoring at 15, which she set in 1976. She holds both the single season points and goals records of 49 and 21 respectively, set in 1977. In addition, Karen holds the career points and goals records of 122 and 55 respectively. She was an all-region first-team selection in 1978. She was also the captain of the basketball and women's lacrosse teams. Karen won the Bison Club Award and the Christy Mathewson Award as a senior, and she became one of the first 2 women when inducted into Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 1985. Our final guest this evening from the alumni is Kathy Klein from the class of 1980. She was a team captain in 1979. She holds a share of the single games points and goals records. Does this sound familiar? When somebody
Wags led the way, though. Wags led the way.
She ranks.
Couldn't have done it without you, KK.
She ranks second on both the single season points and goals scored charts with 40 and 19 respectively in 1977, and she ranks second on both the career points and goals scored charts with 103 and 48 respectively. She was an all-region second-team selection in 1978. She was nominated for the Honda Broderick Award in 1980 as the nation's outstanding female collegiate athlete. She also was the captain of the women's lacrosse team and played 1 year of basketball and tennis at Bucknell. She won the Bison Club and Christy Mathewson Awards as a senior and was inducted into the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 1994. And as mentioned, our guest from the current team is senior defender Kaylin Long from Hanover, Pennsylvania. So, Coach, it's another great group, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
So, how did you feel hearing all those stats, Kaylin?
I'm rather impressed with some of those total points for the year in goals and assists.
That's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
That's really impressive.
Hey, I wanted to start with a super softball question, and just can we go around the room and talk about kind of what we're up to lately, where we live, what we've done for career, what's going on in your lives. Can we do that? Does that make sense? Can we start with Professor Nicely, please?
I graduated from Bucknell in 79, and then I went to the University of New Hampshire and got a master's degree in zoology. And from there, I went to Germany and spent 2 years doing freshwater biology on beautiful Lake Constance. And I had met my husband at Bucknell. He was actually the assistant women's lacrosse coach, but we hadn't dated when I was an undergrad. We started dating when we were in Europe. So we were in Europe until 85, and then returned to the States, to Gaithersburg, Maryland for 2 years. Then my husband got a job in Kyoto, Japan. So we were there for 3 years. And then he got a job at Bucknell in the mechanical engineering department. And that's what brought us back to Lewisburg. And since 1994, I've been the lab director of core course biology at Bucknell.
That's awesome. Kathy, and make sure to include your umpiring.
Okay. After graduation, I moved to Philly. At the time, my husband was in graduate school. I worked for Spectacor, which is the parent company of Spectrum. I handled one of their subsidiaries as director of operations. And then an acquaintance wooed me into helping her with a regional advertising agency in our area. And at the time, we were ready to move back to Lebanon County from Philly. So I was an account exec for about 7 years with a small firm. And then my sons were young. I didn't really want to work full time, so I bartended for several years. And thereafter decided to embark on a whole new career in education. I'm currently a school counselor for the Lebanon School District. I hold a master's in counseling and also a master's in sport management. And I began umpiring at the age of 40, field hockey and lacrosse. I currently just do field hockey. I have not done lacrosse in years, actually, but I do everything, adult women. Before the squad moved from the Nook, I was helping them with their practice games and things like that. But I do Division I all the way down to middle school. Absolutely love it. I get paid to exercise, and the young ladies like Kaylin keep me young. So kind of a very brief rundown.
That's awesome. Irene?
Hi, I'm Dr. Irene Stein, and I tell people I only got 1 degree per decade. But after I left Bucknell with a Master's of Science degrees in math, I went and worked for Burroughs, and I was a computer programmer and got a master's degree in computer programming. Came out to Colorado, worked for Hewlett Packard for 16 years, and quit and got a master's degree in communication development, and then went for a doctorate degree in human and organizational systems, human development and organizational development. From there, I've been working for about 12 years at University of the Rockies, then Ashford University, working with doctoral students, helping them with their research. I was dean of doctoral programs for a while, and now I'm just plain faculty in the doctoral programs. So I'm still doing that. I'm still helping students who are mid-career professionals in mostly the social sciences work on their dissertations. And my major exercise is golf. I got my 2 knees replaced about 5 years ago, and now I can walk the golf course. So I'm really, really happy about that. And I do a lot of walking. That's what getting a dog does.
That's awesome. I feel like there's been a lot of walking lately with the pandemic. That's been one, in my neighborhood at least, that's been one real positive, is we see a lot more people out walking.
Mm-hmm.
Karen?
Healthy dogs.
Yeah, right. Karen?
I first of all have to apologize. The phone rang and messed up everything, and I missed the entire introduction. But so if I do something that you told us not to do or whatever, I apologize. I didn't hear a thing. Let's see. I graduated from Bucknell in 1976 with a degree in animal behavior, which I say to Bucknellians, but everybody else I say bio and psych, because animals was never my interest. I went to Penn State and got a master's degree in physical education with an emphasis in sports psychology, and started a career in college athletics. I was at Mount Holyoke College for 5 years, at Morehead State in Minnesota for 1 year, living across the Red River in Fargo, North Dakota. That was a long year. And spent my last 8 years at Nichols College, which is a small, predominantly business school in central Massachusetts. I, at various times, coached field hockey, basketball, and softball. At Nichols, I was the athletic director, and I did some teaching in various places and intramurals. I actually got started, some of Karen and Irene may remember, I started at Mount Holyoke and probably got that job because I had a background in intramurals and they wanted someone to start an intramural program. And I had worked with the, I have to remember which one it was, WRA or ARA. One school had I think we were WRA at Bucknell.
Yeah.
And helped with that just because it was sports, and I probably got my job because of that. Had some great years coaching and won a bunch of state tournaments, went to a couple of ECAC tournaments. And then I left in 1992. I got married in 1991 to Bob. He also is an official. He has officiated basketball and softball forever. And I started officiating. I left Nichols because I had my son Robbie, who made me a mother 28 years ago today. So today's Robbie's birthday, and he is coming north tomorrow for 5 days. Don't tell the quarantine police. He hasn't been up here since November, so I am very anxious. I went into officiating. As I said, Bob had done that for a long time and assumed I would go back to coaching when my kids were a little older, until I realized how stupid that was, because when your kids get home from school, you're going out. So I started officiating. I've done field hockey, basketball, softball. I've done high school and college and youth, and I really enjoy it, and it gives me a lot more flexibility. So that's what I'm doing.
That's awesome. You'll be glad to hear both of Kaylin's parents are physical education teachers, and Kaylin is an education major, so she's on her way. Do you want to talk about what you're taking course load wise and where you're headed, Kaylin, just for a quick second?
I guess it's just in the genes. So hearing that there was some education, and even the sports route kind of intrigues me a little bit, with possibly wanting to pursue a grad assistant position after I graduate this year. So yeah, I'm going to graduate an early childhood education major, so certified to teach K through 4, which is just crazy. So hopefully we'll get my student teaching in this spring. And then the hopes is to pursue a master's while possibly filling in a grad assistant position and working with the field hockey team at some level. And then seeing where that takes me after 2 years with that. So yeah.
I did that at Penn State. I had a grad assistantship with the softball program.
Yes, that's awesome. I'm really excited to see the networking process with that. So
yeah, we'll definitely hit that a little bit later. So the first softball question might be kind of the 80s folks. When I mentioned recruiting, they all kind of laughed at me. And so I want to hear how you were recruited to Bucknell and what that process was like. How did you choose Bucknell, and how it was introduced to you? Talk about any interaction you had with the team or coaches before you decided to come. So talk about the process by which you chose to come to Bucknell. You want to go in the same order there?
Do it oldest first, or?
Oh yeah, if you're up for it. Who's the oldest?
Very easy.
I can't tell by looking. Go ahead, Karen.
0.
Right.
I was not recruited. There was no recruiting. I didn't talk to coaches. I didn't know the coaches. I looked at Bucknell like, in those days, Kaylin, we didn't do computers. We had a book about this big, Barron's Book of Colleges or whatever, and we went through the whole book just like you would do online, except that you had to go through the whole book. And I looked at a bunch of colleges and loved Bucknell and went there. I will say that I looked at some other small colleges. Union was one because my dad went there. And a lot of them, when I was looking in the early 70s, had just gone co-ed, the Ivy Leagues and the NESCACs and the Williams Amherst, those schools, they had all just gone co-ed. And I went to Union, which I had grown up and loved, and their idea of women's athletics was intramural tennis on the green. So I ended up at Bucknell probably because of the sports, because they had sports. Now, it wasn't anything like what you have, but to me, it had real sports. But there was no such thing as athletic recruiting, at least on the women's side. I can't speak for the men.
So I was a year after Karen, and yeah, there was no recruiting, and it's when it comes to field hockey, I'd never played field hockey before, so I got to
what?
Well, I'd never
How did
played
you go
field
from
hockey
never
before.
playing? You didn't play, and then now you're on the all-decade team.
Well, I was an athlete. It's not like I didn't do any athletes. I mean, I was a basketball player. Well, I'm 5 foot nothing, but it was different back then. But I was an athlete, and I liked sports and everything. They started varsity, what's the equivalent of varsity athletics at high school when I was in 10th grade, 10th, 11th grade. I was 4. 10th grade, they started a couple, because it was against the law to have, girls athletics, varsity athletics at that time. But we fought that. And so by 11th grade, we had 4 seasons, and 12th grade. So I played 4 seasons and was on a good volleyball team, and all of that, and played 4 seasons, including softball, and when I was a senior. And I think it was the softball coach or someone. She says, Irene, if you ever get a chance, you'd probably be pretty good at field hockey. Because she came from, where she came from, there had been field hockey. I think I played tennis in the fall when the field hockey started. But again, we only had 2 years of field hockey while I was in high school, because we didn't have girls' sports before that. So I got to Bucknell, and my Tropp, who was my roommate, was Weathers, Kathy Weathers. Kathy Weathers Haas, who I think now lives in Fort Collins, the same place I do. So Kathy Weathers was my roommate, and she came from Pennsylvania, and she played field hockey. And she was, this tall, lanky, fast, real field hockey-like person, like Kaylin, very much like Kaylin, in fact. So she played field hockey, and I'm like, okay. And we didn't have we didn't have teams, or anything. We did get sort of uniforms, but, we had to wash them ourselves and all of that. And in high school, we had to tape our own numbers on to gym suits. That's what we did, to wear stuff. But I got to Bucknell, and Weathers played field hockey, and I said, okay, I'll play. And the first day there, they had you fill out these cards, right? These index cards. It's like, what position do you want to play? And everyone, as I'm looking around, everyone was a forward. It's like forward, 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 forward. That's when we did the 5-3-2-1 type of thing, right? So everyone was forward. And I knew there was only 1 goalie and only 2 fullbacks. So I said, halfback. And so when they threw us on the field, and I knew halfback was between forward and fullback, and I knew how to play basketball. So I was a pretty good defensive. I knew where to put myself and everything. And so they tried me out for the A team, and then after a while, I was on the B team, and all of that. And after a few days, someone said to me, and it wasn't a coach, someone said to me, is that stick too long for you? And I'm like, oh, do they come in sizes? So I got a shorter stick. Like I'm 5 foot nothing. So I got a shorter stick, and all of a sudden I was able to do stuff, to actually hit it, and it wasn't hurting my hands and all of that. And so, but by the time the season started, I was on the C. There were 3 of us on the C team. So I didn't get to play very much. And I worked really, really, really hard, though. And I said, I'm not doing all of this and try, without being able to play. So I worked really hard and I got back on the B team. And by the end of the season, someone got sick. The forward that I always marked, because I was a halfback, that got sick. And they said, Irene, would you like to play forward on the varsity for this one game? Because I had been following her all, for weeks. I'm like, okay, sure. And so I did that and everything. And at the end of the season, the coach said to me, Irene, you were the most improved person. You were the most improved player on the whole thing. And I'm like, well, I hope so, because I had never played before. And they looked at me like, why didn't you say something? And I said, well, I thought it was obvious. So the next year when we filled out the little cards, it had, how many years have you played on the cards there. So that, as far as field hockey goes,
Awesome.
My roommate played field hockey, and it just seemed like the thing to do.
I
think it's
wanted to
incredible.
add, I cut out again, I'm sorry, but in those days, whoops. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I cut out again. In those days, unless you didn't want to, the females who wanted to play sports played all 3 seasons. There weren't
Yeah.
enough of us that wanted to play sports.
Well, there wasn't really a spring season. Spring season was kind of very clubby, but yeah.
How about Karen Nicely and what's your story? How did you end up at Bucknell in the first place?
So like Karen, I got a catalog from Bucknell and a couple other schools, and my main criteria were, do they have biology, field hockey, basketball, and lacrosse? And nothing else. I didn't care where they were. Just they had to have those 3 sports in biology, because that's what I wanted to major in. And I actually missed the sign up. We were talking to Bobby Castens in the basketball thing, and she said, oh yeah, there were tables set up, and we could pick what sports we wanted to do, what activities. Well, somehow I missed that, but I knew where the field hockey goals were, and so around 3:30 in the afternoon, I just wandered down. So where the Gateway apartments are now, that was our field hockey field between the railroad tracks and Tustin Gym. There were tennis courts, and there was a field hockey field there, and so that's where I went. And sure enough, there were all these women who wanted to play field hockey. So I said, oh great, I'm in the right place. So there was no recruiting. You just showed up, and if you wanted to play, you could play.
That's awesome. How about you, Kathy?
That sign up story was great, Wags. I never heard that. That was pretty funny. Yeah, no, like everybody else on this Zoom, I wasn't recruited for Bucknell, although I was recruited for larger schools, Penn State, Penn, some other places that I really liked the atmosphere of Bucknell. I knew I'd be able to play, probably what I wanted, because I knew that the list was, long enough for me to satisfy me. Becky Carr actually was looking at my basketball skills, not my field hockey skills. And after the fact, she showed me like this folder of clippings she had from my high school basketball career, which was kind of funny because I played 3 sports in high school as well. But you walked on. If you were okay, you played. If you decided not to, you just did something else. It really wasn't, there was no formal, there was nothing formal about it. So.
Like jumping into the pool without really knowing if there's water in there in a way,
Yeah,
it's funny. The whole team makes fun of me on Kaylin's behalf because I recruited her as like a right wing and we converted her to a left back. And so like, she's our ultimate utility. Plus she was like an all-star basketball player in high school. So everybody makes fun of me because Kaylin is our total utility player that had to completely adjust her whole game to go from right wing to left back. But with you guys' stories, it sounds like there was a lot more adjusting going on.
Yeah.
I think it was really different. The coaches slotted you in where they needed help. I mean, that happened to me in lacrosse in my sophomore year. In my freshman year, I played tennis, but all my friends were playing lacrosse, and I had never played lacrosse before. And I was looking at all my peeps having fun at the Tustin field, and I always felt like I was a prisoner in the tennis arena. So in my sophomore year, I went out for lacrosse, and at the end of the season, the goalkeeper got pneumonia. and she was like the only goalkeeper we had. So I had never played anything defensively before, ever. And I went from being a forward and a point guard in basketball to being a goalkeeper in lacrosse. And that was a great experience. One of the toughest positions I've ever played, mentally and physically.
I have
But
a great
I-
story.
Hit it.
Jeremy, you'll love this story. Keep this in the back of your mind if you ever get into trouble.
All right.
When I was at Nichols, I coached field hockey and softball for most of the time I was there, most of the 8 years. And I looked at as we were ending a spring season, I looked at my fall and thought, I don't think I'm really comfortable with my goaltending situation. So long story short, recruited, and you'll laugh at, since we're talking about recruiting, 2 of my super athletic softball catchers to be my goalies for the next year. I said, they had no idea what field hockey was, but I said, it'll be a piece of cake for you. You're used to wearing all the equipment. You're used to having balls thrown at you, sticks swung in front of you. And one of them kept it up for the next 3 years and was really good. The other one decided it wasn't for her. But yeah, all the years of coaching, no matter what sport, I always wanted to know what they'd like to do, but I made it very clear that if you want to play one position, you may sit for a while. If you want to play, be flexible and let us slot you in where you go, and it always does.
That's awesome.
But you can see as we went from oldest to youngest that, us older, the older people had less. It was that decade was the decade that everything changes, because
yeah.
Title IX was in 73, something like that, which is when I graduated from high school. So everything started to change. So by the time Catherine, came, by the time Karen came, we had tables. By the time Catherine came, Becky Carr saw her. But before that, there was nothing.
And now my number one concern is buying Kaylin a second pair of shoes. Like that was what I was working on today.
Oh, they buy shoes for you now.
Oh yeah, and
She does
sticks
well.
and uniforms. She doesn't need anything. I cover all the bases when they show up.
We call it Christmas in August because we just come in our locker and have a bunch of cool gear in it.
I'll send you guys some stuff. I'll send you some swag. So just to make you feel better. Karen, if I recruited an athlete off of another team to be our goalie, I think that whatever coach was the coach of that team would probably kill me.
Oh, I'm sure.
And our old softball coach was a fighter.
Well, you probably have fall and spring for both field hockey and softball. 2, the Nichols is much smaller in Division III, so we weren't. I mean, I did a lot of recruiting. Things have changed drastically, even with the small schools. But 3, I was coaching both teams. So
it's funny with the admissions office now. It used to be that they recruited Renaissance students, right? Students that did everything, right? 3 sports and, choir and band and all this. And I think that the trend now has been to really dial in on whatever you're doing. Kaylin played basketball, but she played basketball at the same time as playing indoor field hockey as well. And so she played field hockey, 12 months of the year, and then just sort of supplemented it because she was probably one of the better athletes in her high school with some other sports. So let me let Kaylin jump in here and ask a question.
Yes, I'd love to. Well, I just want to say thank you again for your insight and experiences. These have been great. And I automatically catch myself just relating to them, and also just how different things are from, especially I'm living in the Gateways this upcoming year. So hearing that there used to be a field there kind of is crazy to visualize. But anyway, so I think from any current Bucknell field hockey student athlete in my position, do you have any advice in regards to the college field hockey experience that you had at Bucknell that you would give to any of us current players there right now? And I don't mind the order. We can stick with the oldest to youngest trend if we want, but it's up to you guys.
Well, I don't know how much I enjoy being the oldest, but I guess, I mean, I'm looking at it from a very different feeling, but it all matters. You know, I spent 15 years coaching and administering and had millions of, well, not thousands of student athletes that I mentored and have gone on some to coaching. And so I'm like a mother hen with my former athletes. I would just say to like I would say to anybody about anything, enjoy it. Don't take it for granted. It's not life or death, but it's something very special that you will always miss. And you know, try not to. Are you going to be a senior? Did I hear? Or no, I
Yes,
didn't.
right. Yes, I don't want to
You
say that
have
word.
1 year left of this kind of structure. I mean, you've heard how several of us have gone on to do other things in the sports, but just enjoy it. I mean, it's a really special thing. When I go back for Bucknell reunions, I've only gone to one that I truly loved and will never forget, and it wasn't with the class of '76. Because my friends were Irene in the class below me and Karen in the class 3 below me and people 1 or 2 or 3 years above me. When they brought us back for the
It was the
25th
25th
reunion.
anniversary.
25th
Yeah.
anniversary of varsity athletics, which we didn't even realize because the only difference from going from our clubs to varsity was where the money came from. Did it come from the student government or did it come from the university? But it wasn't that different for us, at least to my recollection. But the people that I want to see are not because they were in the class of '76, but because they were in the athletics. And I was in a sorority, and the only reason, I mean, I wasn't even enthused about sorority life when I came to college. But the only reason I pledged is because all the people I hung out with were in one sorority. And so I thought, well, why shouldn't I be a part of their group officially? But just enjoy it. And I would also suggest that sounds like it might be a consideration. If you continue to love being involved in sports, there are lots of ways, certainly club teams, but if you stop playing, there are lots of ways to stay involved. We are always desperate for officials. Good coaching is definitely always in need. So don't think that because you're going to be finished maybe your structured playing career that field hockey, lacrosse, whatever your sports are is over.
Yeah.
I think too, Kaylin, that sports gave me so many other skills than just being an athlete. And something that you can take with you as you move through life is the mental tenacity you're going to need, the dedication and hard work. This all sounds like corny stuff, but it's so applicable in your job when you have to work overtime and you're working 60 and 65 hours a week. It's no different than juggling, you know, your academic schedule and your training schedule. It's just a different thing. But employers want people that have leadership skills. They want people that have drive. They want people that have aspirations. They want to know if you're a good team player, more than your actual skill, because they can teach skills, but they can't teach internal chutzpah and drive that many students have, and especially many student athletes have. So I think anything that you do, I love working with athletes, even in my professional job, because I know that they're going to give me everything I need and more. And they're not going to cry when it rains, and they don't care what the weather is. And I mean that not literally, but figuratively. They just want to go out and do it. So, you know, without sounding like a commercial for Nike, it's all true. And I know everybody, Wags, you can speak to the same thing. It's, you know, it's taken me where I am, partly because I'm willing to work really hard to get what I want. So just something to think about.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Irene, you want to go?
Oh, sure. I'll double down on the teamwork. You know, what you learn about being part of a team and what that means, and being a leader and everything, you can't replace, and you can't really get that in a lot of other places. So really, you know, don't really embrace that and embrace any opportunity. Most of the athletes, even now, that I come in contact with, that they're not just there just to play the sport. They're there because they want to do something. They want to do something better for themselves. They want to do something better for their family and all of that. And I think those are great things. Here we are, it's hard to think that other people, came upon our shoulders. We didn't think of it at the time, but the same will happen with you. Is the women who are coming after you, will be on your shoulders. So you are setting an example and being a role model. And we're going to have other crises than what we have right now. And even how you get through this crisis is going to make a difference, and is going to, unbeknownst to you, is going to plant your footprint.
Yeah, I think just, staying active throughout your life and not having any regrets about playing sports. So now I can't find, 11 other women to play field hockey with or lacrosse with or whatever. So I cycle and I walk. And I think during the pandemic, when we were locked in, that was my mini vacation. Every single day I'd go out and walk, or I'd ride my bike. And I think just having that, that routine, that habit that you got into when you were in high school and college, of just, that's a part of my day. I'm not going to sit at my desk all the time. I'm going to go out and I'm going to recharge. And sports is, I can't think of anything better than sports to do that with.
When you talk to people who are going to job interviews, if I were to be interviewing and I were to say, we're looking for team people, we're looking for people that can be a part of a group that can work together with a lot of different people, we're looking for leaders, we're looking for people who can follow directions and do what's expected, we're looking for people who are determined to set a goal and reach the goal, and we're looking for people who can deal with the success, but we're also looking for people who could deal with less than success. I'm describing being an athlete, but anybody hiring in any other field is looking for those same things.
That's awesome to hear. We talk about it sometimes in the sense of every time you get tackled, you're getting told no. Like every time someone takes the ball away from you, nope, can't do that. You're going to have to figure out something different. And so it's sort of this constant learning process of dealing with failure and learning how to, move past it. That's really neat to hear. All right, so you guys have touched on a lot of the different questions that Todd and I had coming into this, and Kaylin and I had. I want to hear about memorable moments during your college field hockey careers. And if you can't think of a field hockey one, it's okay to substitute in another sport and just pretend it was field hockey.
I think we have to start with the younger ones because I have a longer period of time to try to think of it.
Okay. You got to reach further back.
I don't remember.
I have to think about that.
Okay, wait, I don't remember if it was your year or if it was my freshman year, and maybe it was Tropp and me. We we choreographed what we were going to do with the ball, except without the ball. And so in the old days, we started with a bully, so ground sticks. And so I don't remember who was Tropp or if it was Cake. I don't remember who it was. So we did the ground sticks and we pretended we had it all figured out. Okay, I'm going to pass it to KK, who's going to pass it to Jean Bean, who's going to pass it to Margaret, and then there's going to be a score. And so the imaginary ball went all over the place and everybody was touching it as though they actually had it. And then we scored and the coaches were like, huh, what just happened? That was one of my funnest memories of practice.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I have a lot of memories. I think probably having the honor of playing on the Mideast team was a big deal then. That was before we were even AIAW. The only way you could go, there wasn't a nationals. The only way you could go to the festival was to make kind of the regional, and then I don't know. Wags, what was the difference? It was
One was
local
the
and then the
Susquehanna
regional.
All-Star thing, and then we were
Right.
selected from that
And
team
then
from
Mideast.
Mideast, and then went
And
to
at the
nationals.
time, there were several very, very talented people. Julie Staver, who lived in Philly at the time because she was a veterinary student. Nancy Stevens, who now is coaching a Division I school. Who else? There were several. Linda Kreiser, who is just
she's a legend.
A legend at Lower Dolphin High School. She's been coaching. I went, by the way, Jeremy, I went to her camp when I was in high school. She was probably, I don't know, maybe 21, maybe 22 tops. So she had a field hockey camp then, and because I was in that area, we went to that camp. But anyway, there were some really phenomenal players, and so we got to play with them every year, and we were just so wet behind the ears. And these were women who were trying out for the national team, and that was a big honor for us. I think the bus rides, singing, I don't know, crazy stuff. I remember breaking my stick at the Colgate match. I was a junior, and I think, Wags, you were the one who pulled it out of the trash can. I don't know if you remember that. And then they gave it to me at the banquet at the end of the season. I was so upset because that was like my lucky stick, and they were wood then. They weren't composite materials. It was a basic wooden stick, long. You know, there was the long toe and the short toe, and the keeper had a different toe, but I don't know. All kinds of
Six now, you need a degree in aerospace engineering.
Yeah.
But do you
And you
remember,
pay for them too.
Yeah.
do you remember when we were invited to play in the International Friendship Tournament in
Oh
Mexico?
yeah, we went to Mexico. Oh
We
yeah,
went to Mexico in February. It was fantastic.
that was awesome.
And we were all, so there were four of us, right? Bobby and Kay and you and me.
Mhm.
So it was February and snow was falling in Pennsylvania. So we went to Mexico with our bathing suits. And so we had picked out this really nice little bank. We thought it was very private. And all of a sudden, these Mexican men start jabbering at us. And I didn't take Spanish. And I don't know, KK, did you know any of the Spanish? So anyway, what we got out of them was, you can't lie here because the men might look at you. And so we had to pack up and go home.
That was crazy.
Oh no.
I remember, so I was a senior in the fall of 1776, 1976. So
Yeah,
it
we're not
was
that
the-
old.
Well, I say that because I'm picturing there were all these 1776, 1976 flags around.
You were not a senior in 76.
At the fall of 76,
Oh, gotcha.
I
Sorry.
was
Yep.
a senior.
Yep.
So I graduated in 77 the following
Right.
spring. But that fall, after 4 years of, remember I started field hockey without ever playing, I did get selected to and we weren't NCAA division anything back then. There was no NCAA for us. And I think we were AIAW, but we did get selected to these regional teams. And I'm pretty sure I got selected to the Susquehanna something. And I got selected to the next step up. I'm sure I wasn't first team all Mideast, but I was probably like third team all Mideast, which meant that they had their tournament over Thanksgiving weekend. So I couldn't go home. So my parents came to the tournament in Philadelphia in 1976, the 200. And my parents had never seen me play field hockey. My parents had never seen me play basketball. That it wasn't a thing back then for parents to watch your kids. So they came and they saw me play field hockey. And so that's what I remember. I remember them coming to Philadelphia, and I remember playing and, doing the best I could. Meanwhile, basketball season was starting back at Bucknell. And by the time I got back, my legs were shot and I actually injured myself. But but you know, that whole thing was a big deal, and it's cold at Thanksgiving weekend in Philadelphia. So I remember that. I also remember, and you guys at Tropp or Wags might remember. Do you remember Bobby Testa taking us up to Niagara Falls for some sort of officiating clinic?
Not I.
Testa?
We were in it. They stuffed us. You know, not everyone. They stuffed us in, but they needed players in order to you know, grade officials. So they stuffed about 5 of us in a van, and we went to Niagara Falls, Buffalo, and played in that. So I sort of remember that.
That sounds
We
awesome.
skied the year we went out to Colorado. Wags, were you on that trip?
Yes.
And Bobby Testa, the coach at the time, didn't want to take us because she was afraid we'd all get injured, but we were all skiers. So she got the van, we rented skis, and we went to Breckenridge. It was an awesome day. And it snowed.
Yeah, I don't know
so
if we actually skied or if we just walked around downtown. And Bobby she was infatuated with these little pine trees. So we had to go out on the side of the highway and climb up the bank. It was all covered with snow just so she could touch these little pine trees that were about 2 feet high.
They
Did
also
you guys
had to
play
shovel-
games out there?
Yeah, they had to shovel the fields. There was 3 inches of snow. You couldn't even see the field. We played in the snow, literally.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's
Well,
awesome.
at the time, we probably weren't as happy as I'm remembering it romantically now, but I think
Yeah.
at this moment, we
all
were
of those go down in the lore. Yeah.
and the ball was like literally trying to make a snowman. It would just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was pretty treacherous.
That's crazy.
So I don't know if I've come up with anything that truly fits the question, but I'll give you a couple of thoughts anyway. Probably the thing that I am most proud of at Bucknell, relating to sports in general, is that this was probably telling you what was going to happen in the next 20 or 30 years. But it became apparent to me that at the end of the year banquet, that all the male 4-year sport athletes received a Bucknell ring, and the women didn't. And that very quickly made me realize that wasn't going to get past me. So I spent most of my junior year dealing with the Bison Club and coaches, and I think, I can't remember the names, but people that sponsored the rings, that paid for them. And long story short, my junior year in 1975, the female athletes, 4-year athletes, received rings, and of course the next year I did too. And that
Well,
probably
thank
was.
you.
You're
I
very
feel
welcome.
like I need
Yeah.
to thank you for the ring that I just assumed everybody got. I never knew that.
Well, and
teaching me.
I'm gonna send something to Jeremy to share with Kaylin. The others of you probably remember it. It happened to be my speech that I made at the 25th anniversary, because as I was telling Kathy and Jeremy and Todd when we were waiting for everybody, all the oldie but goodies thought it was hysterical remembering all the things I talked about, but the current athletes, and this was years ago now, I think it was 2000 maybe, thought it was a comedy routine, it was a joke. So I mean, I would like to share that with Kaylin, for the next generation to realize that, as Kathy just said, no, we did not always have all these things. So yeah, the men had always gotten those rings. That's my proudest thing. I also want to mention, though, when you're asking what are my greatest memories, we've all talked about our friendships and the people that you stay together with. I will share, I'm sure most of you will know these names. I officiate now with Jean Baker, who lives in Central Massachusetts, and she joined our board. She's kept in touch with me and finally called me and said, can I do some games there, because she's right on the border of Western and Central. And she was in Karen's class. She was a freshman when I was a senior, and I try very hard not to call her Jean Bean. And the other person that I have kept up with is a woman who played field hockey at Penn State, which at the time was Division I while we were Division III, and went on to be an Olympian, also played lacrosse. I don't know if, Karen, maybe you know if she was a lacrosse Olympian, but her name at Penn State was Chris Larson. And she and I marked each other. We were both somewhere in the center of the field whenever we played. And at the time, Penn State would always beat us because they were Division I. And the only reason we played them is because they were only 45 minutes away. But I got to Mount Holyoke, which was my first job, and we went to play Williams College. And it probably wasn't my first year because she was a year behind me, but there she was coaching Williams College. And she's still there. She's retired now, but she still helps out with the field hockey team. And every time it's like, even though she was at Penn State, long lost friends because we competed against each other all those years. So I guess a lot of things are forgotten, but all the people that I have kept up with were athletes, all of them.
There were a lot of changes, and Tropp, you were at the spear front of a lot of changes. At least field hockey, we had our own field and all of that, and it was a regulation size. But basketball, we played in Tustin Gym, which was a 3/4 size. And we had to fight to get into Davis, to get into the regular size gym for our practices, because we played our games at regular size gyms. And the men weren't happy about that. A lot of the men. Am I allowed to tell this story?
Sure. I love that Kaylin gets to hear this, because this will get back to the rest of the group as well.
Okay. So our first practice, and at first they tried to negotiate, and said, well, we've got varsity and JV men, and then we've got the intramural men, and then we've got the freshman men and all of that. So you can have like the 6 a.m. slot at Davis Gym. And we were like, well, no, there's this Title IX thing now that we're really supposed to be able to share prime time, so we got to share prime time. But the first time we went into Davis Gym to practice, there was this male athlete standing right outside his the locker room, which was right on our floor, and he was buck naked. So he just stood there, and he was like, my gym,
silent protest.
My gym and everything. And which it's okay, we were there. We had to fight for the training room, we had to fight for that. And of course, we wore skirts playing basketball until about my second or third year there. And when we did get,
I think it was later than that, because I never wore shorts.
You never wore shorts? But I do remember, picking out shorts at some point. But we always had to wash them ourselves, our field hockey stuff and all of that, which of course I had never worn before. Remember that? We had to wash it before every game and try to figure that out and all of that. And of course we all had our own shoes, I didn't even have a knapsack. The first thing I did when I graduated from college and got a job was I bought a backpack. So, because I used to carry my clothes in, a grocery store bag. So in a paper bag, which we didn't think anything of it.
I'm not going to tell you how many backpacks I've already bought, Kaylin.
We just didn't think anything of it. And after I just a few years after I graduated, I noticed that, they were buying everything, they were buying shoes for the athletes. And I'm like, holy moly, this is going to become just like the men. And I was really, really upset at the time. This is going to become just like the men, and it's going to be, commoditized and all of that kind of stuff. And I was really upset. Now I'm all used to it. And I'm glad for the equality, but
we are so thankful.
We were proud of where we came from.
That's a lot of work that you guys put in. I mean, the conversations that I've had with you know, the athletes that went through you guys' generation really set the tone for us, you know, and really created the opportunities that we have. I mean, it's serious, like seriously. And it's like, I wish there was a little bit more education. I mean, Title IX has changed over the years to mean more, you know, it's like sexual violence and harassment and things like that now, instead of gender equity. And so the conversations have been changed, but yeah, I really appreciate kind of what you guys did. And I wish that we could get you connected to our students and help them understand that a little bit more too. Hashtag gratitude, right, Kayla?
I was just going to say, bring us back for another. It doesn't have to be an official reunion, but that was the greatest get together I've ever been a part of. I had such a blast.
Let's commit to that. Let's commit to that next fall. Not that, I mean, obviously we don't have any games this fall, so it's not going to be, there's nothing to really come back for. But let's think about next fall. I'll start planning that next week.
I'm still laughing about the shorts versus the skirts. You know, in high school we played in tunics. Like it was like it was like a jumper, and you put
That's what I played in.
You had a shirt on under it and a belt. Yep. It was like a one-piece thing.
Field hockey and basketball. That's what I played in.
I'm gonna send you a poster we made after this that you guys have to tell me whether you might be in this poster.
Oh God.
Yeah. All right.
We also our first couple of years in field hockey, my first couple of years, I still have the shirts. They were white polo shirts, you know, collars, 3-button, with cotton, with spray painted numbers, little numbers on the chest and big numbers on the back. We spray painted them.
We joke around. I played before they invented tech fabric, and the team all laughs at me for that. But
oh yeah.
Hey, Kaylin's got another good question here. Let's let Kaylin jump in with this question.
Yeah, I have one more. I think just hearing how highly you speak of your fellow teammates and those that came before you, this question kind of fits right into that. So who was a teammate that you most admired throughout your career at Bucknell, and why?
Well, I'll go first. I have several, but the one who I probably most admired is in this little Hollywood square, and it would be Wegs. Karen Wegener set the tone for everybody. Her class was very special because we were really fortunate that we had very, very talented athletes, but they were also brilliant academically. And so it was a smart, stimulating, fun, interactive group. You know, and when I think of people like Pam Heller too, who was actually 2 years above you, but, you know, Margaret was, you know, silently deadly as an athlete. She was a brilliant geologist. She was vegan before I even knew what vegan was. I mean, you know, I learned so much from so many different people. But Karen, you especially, were not just dedicated to sports, but you were multi-talented in so many ways and in so many realms that it's something that I always admired, and also was a great role model for me. You know, Karen set the tone for the whole team and was inspirational in many ways. So that was easy for me.
Was Bobby Castens in that same class?
Yeah.
Yes, she was. She's another one.
That's when everything, I mean, to me, there was like before that class and after that class. You know, that class, you guys came in there and you were like really athletes, and you really played in high school, and you know, and you really knew what you were doing, and we started winning, I think. You know, it was really something else. And before that, it was just kind of, you know, we just whatever. Fun. Well, it was always fun, but
it was just fun.
Yeah. And so I mean, I remember Bobby and Karen, all these people you remembered, and you know, KK and Jean Bean, and you know, Margaret ended up being my roommate, I think. You know, all of those people, that was quite a class. So
it was just fun. I mean, I couldn't think of a more fun thing to do on the field is pass the ball to KK and let her score. And she would pass the ball to me and I'd score, or Jean Bean or whoever. It didn't matter. Nobody really cared about, oh, is this my, 23rd goal or whatever. It was, did we win the game? Did we have fun? Did we make a great play? And that's really what I just treasured that about our team. Karen Tropp and I both played center forward in the day. And I remember no one ever wanted to get her penny.
I tell that story often.
She sweat so much. And then she gave me this soaking wet penny. Oh gosh.
Yeah, we would be like first line, second line going against each other, and then the coach would want us to switch lines so that the starters were going against the starting defense and that kind of thing. And everybody would just switch pennies, and Karen half the time or anyone else would run over to the far end of the field to get a new penny. Sorry.
And then didn't a lot of that class play basketball too? KK, I don't know that you did, but
I played in my freshman year.
Yeah, you did. So a lot of that, so we played field hockey together, and then we played basketball together, and then they were starting up a new, like a lacrosse team, which of course I had never played lacrosse before, and I was really terrible at that. But so, and then we used to take. I remember going on road trips, just the girls. And we kidnapped the bison, do you remember that?
Yes.
The bison goes to Washington. and so I wonder if I have pictures of that. But that was the group, those were my friends. Karen, Tropp was my big sister in the sorority. Not everyone was in the same sorority, but that, certainly the people who were in athletics were my friends.
That's awesome. Last question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Karen.
Well, I remember a woman who was a senior when I was a freshman, and she kind of took me under her wing. Her name was Marge Deck. She was called Digger. She's in a lot of the record books. She played field hockey, basketball, and tennis. Big woman, big tall woman. But I would have to say, and I don't know if I thought this when I was going through it, but certainly looking back now at 66, the person that I admired the most and had by far the greatest influence on me was Bobby Testa. And I have told her, I was a superstar in high school because we really didn't have a whole lot. I mean, in field hockey, in high school in New York, the ball went up the middle, we shot, the ball was cleared, went down to the field, and when we got it back, the ball went up the middle. So of course I was a star. I was the center forward. But I never had anybody to coach me. And I got there, and maybe not the first year, but certainly with the group that Irene's talking about at the end, and probably before that, all of a sudden I was playing on a team with women from Philadelphia who actually knew what the game was all about. And they may not have been the caliber of today, but at that time, it was like Irene coming from a school that didn't have it to people who were the center of hockey. But Bobby was the first person that I had that really showed me coaching and caring about the entire person, and that's pretty much what kicked me to where I ended up.
That's awesome. Athletics is such a cool way to give back to. Like I had coaches when I was younger that I'm still emulating, and I'm not the coach that I want to be yet, but I'm still working on it every day. But hey, last question. I lost my train of thought. Last question. What do you think about where we are now? Tell me about what you know about our program now, and the direction that you see us going, and And whether you've seen some of the games on the stream, the live stream that the Patriot League puts up, and the updates and all that kind of stuff that we have. And then as well, if you want to tie in any advice that you want to give Kaylin and I about the direction to take the program, we'd love to hear it as well. Let's start.
I'll start.
Anybody wants to jump in?
I'll start. I haven't seen any of the feeds, but I do keep up with all the emails that come through and letters and things. I get a sense, without having been directly there or involved in the program at all, that it's doing really well. I get the sense that still the people being recruited and representing Bucknell are quality students first, are quality people, and also happen to be quality athletes. It seems like the program has gotten better and better, and all I would ever ask for as a coach is that they are always competitive in the league. You may not win every year. You may not even be one of the top teams every year, but you're always in the running and representing the school well and making the kids feel like there's some good reason to put forth all that effort. So I'm very pleased, and I still am very proud to have been a Bucknell.
Good to hear.
I love
Kathy's
to see,
seen us a lot,
yeah,
right?
I just was going to say, I love to see, I still love to go to Bucknell and even to work as an umpire, because I know from whence I cometh, number one. Number two, I know from whence the program has cometh. And something that I look at in the school is not, and I'll agree with Tropp, it's not the win-loss, it's how are we treated, it's what the facility is like, it's how are we managed, what is the management of the facility, the sportsmanship of the players. And I always know that when I go to Bucknell, it's going to be a great experience. And no, you don't always win. And I don't even remember who wins and who loses. We do so many games. I don't even think about that aspect of it. But I also appreciate the fact that the rigor academically is still there. And I think that you're recruiting young women who have that at the fore, and also happen to be excellent athletes. And you can't play in the Patriot League if you're not at that level. So I think that's something that I've always been proud of, as much as being an athlete is also, being able to maintain the rigor, to which I was challenged when I was a student there. And I think that also, has carried through in the rest of my life as well. So I love seeing the brand new facility. I love the swag and the new gear. I love seeing it. And I think you guys deserve it. I'm happy that women are at that plateau now. We have miles to go, I think. But I think we've, come a long way. And in that respect, I've really enjoyed seeing the before and the after, truthfully. So
It's awesome. Thank you.
I probably see more of the basketball. The basketball team has done really well lately, and I get to see it on national TV. And I live in Colorado. I go to Colorado State University, women's basketball, and they're not doing quite as well. But the student athletes are getting younger and younger. I don't know how that's happening, but they're now. But I just really admire, Kaylin, your generation and the student athletes that you are. Yeah, we were student athletes too, and as students, I think we could hold our own against anyone. They used to say, we could go to Harvard for a master's degree, for a graduate degree, and be just as good as anyone else. And I'm assuming that that's still the case. You probably don't recognize it, but I really think that that's a big deal. I think as far as, I'm glad you're Division I, but I'm also glad you're in the Patriot League. I think that that's a really, really good match for the school and for the athletes. I love going. At the time, it was about 3,000 students. I don't know how big it is now. But compared to some of the other schools that I've been around, you know, Virginia Tech and CSU and all of that kind of stuff, I think you really get a lot out of it. By being in a school that size, you get to know your professors, you get to really get your hands on a lot of things in the clubs, you know, aside from athletics. So I hope you're taking advantage of the fact that you're in a very unique community, and you know, you know, you guys are going to take care of me when I'm old and decrepit. So I'm just so happy to see your generation coming through and doing as well as you are.
I mean, I'm on campus pretty much every day during the school year, and I have nothing but respect for the athletes, because I know that you're up at 6 a.m. doing conditioning and lifting, and Jeremy setting up interesting things to do for you in the field house, obstacle courses and things like that. And then, you know, during the day, maybe at noon or at 1 o'clock, whenever you're available, the attack players are going to meet and do a specialist thing, and the defenders are going to meet and do a specialist thing. And then there's practice on top of that. And so I just have a lot of respect for all of the time, all the commitment that you have both to sports and to academics.
Hear, hear. Thanks so much for sharing, guys. It's been really neat. If we're gonna I want to do this again with the team, and I want to talk about the field hockey rules and how they've changed from the 70s to now.
Oh my gosh.
That's a whole different.
That's the next conversation. That's going to take us a whole hour to get through.
It's a different sport.
The 80s folks introduced the roll-in to one of our students, and she was blown away. She'd never even heard of that, and so I was like, "Man, there's more. There's way more than that."
Yeah.
The greatest part is what our goalies did not wear. I mean, that tells you with the game right there. So.
Yeah, I've seen pictures where it's, you know, they have a ball cap.
And I think Bobby her kickers were so old that she had to tape them with
I remember that.
tape before each match, because
they wore
they were like little, I don't know.
They wore feet, they wore legs, they wore a golf glove on their non-stick hand, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I think she had a mask. Didn't she have a mask?
I don't think early on. Well, maybe Bobby, but that was at the end of
Freddie Krueger masks. They introduced those in that was like 81 or so.
Bobby didn't wear a mask. Bobby wore a mouth guard.
Wear that kind of a mask.
I
don't know whether she wore a catcher. I don't remember. But I remember that she had never been a goalie before.
Yeah. The ball wasn't allowed to come an inch off the ground. So it should, I mean, occasionally there was a mistake, but they didn't need it as much because the shots had to be on the ground.
Right.
Everything on the ground. How about that you could raise your hand and stop the ball as long as you didn't hold it?
Catch and release.
Stop
Yeah.
it.
And a scoop, we could, on a corner, we could scoop it, and it went, I used to try it every single practice to get it up and over behind the goalie. It only worked one time in 4 years, but that was just so fun.
We couldn't do that.
You got to watch Kaylin's goal against, that was against American.
My freshman year.
Yeah, we put Kaylin up to do a shootout against American. She lobbed the goalie. Faked her out, lobbed the goalie.
That's a great trick, because if she rushes out too soon,
there's
nothing she can do to get back. You just
take it. It was a bold freshman year decision. I don't know.
I knew you were going to do it. I put you up. That was awesome. That's one of I was so happy in that moment. But yeah, we scored a lob for you, Karen.
Nice.
Jeremy, you mentioned the roll-in. You have to tell Kaylin now what that is.
I don't know what that is.
So instead of hitting the ball off the sideline, or we have the self-start now, so it doesn't even really matter. They would pick it up in their hand and literally bowl it. And so there was a couple rules about how you had to have your feet positioned, but people would just roll it along the ground instead of hitting it in.
When
like
I
anytime
played,
it went off the sideline.
the only rule was that the feet could not touch the line and that it had to be underhand.
And you couldn't.
So there were people that were
around.
really good at kind of showing
Oh, yeah.
one way and kind of going the other way with it.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Can
Not
they
to mention
stop
construction. We don't even have to go there. Nobody
stop
understands that rule.
I'm sorry.
What's that? Go
Can
ahead.
you stop a corner with your hand now? Is
No.
that allowed?
No.
So we used to, like KK was would hit it to the circle, and I would stop it with my hand on the ground, and then someone would whack it
Oh yeah.
into
hand
the
stop.
goal.
Big stopper.
KK had by far the hardest shot, so it was good when Irene stopped the ball for her, and then she would just be ready to swing.
That's sketchy. With your hand
And
right there.
I would point out, I'm trying to think, I'm going to say never, but I think that's true. I never played a field hockey game on turf. It was, in those days, the turf that you might have heard about was the AstroTurf in Houston, and that was brand new.
Yeah.
So we certainly didn't. Everything was on grass,
Yeah.
not always nice grass.
And
It's
mud.
so much easier.
Yeah,
It's
prettier
just
game.
like you whisper to the ball to go somewhere else, and it just goes there. Like you don't need to hit it or whack it. You can just tell it to go, and there it goes. Kathy, would you give someone a card if they caught the ball?
It depends where it would be. Potentially,
Like if
in the
someone
circle.
just like reached up and was like,
In the circle, it could be a stroke because it's considered a flagrant
Right.
foul. So
intentional, right? Yeah.
yeah, I have given a card for people catching it in midfield already too, just because.
Really?
Yeah, breakdown play.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've
Or throwing their
relaxed the
stick and
rules.
missing it and catching it instead. That happened to me one time, and I carded the player off. It was just dangerous.
It's been interesting to watch. The rules have gotten more open and more open and more open to keep the game speed up. And so they've, like there's no offsides. We're allowed to sub whenever we want in any kind of situation pretty much, except for corners. Like there's these self-starts where you don't even need to bother stopping the ball. You can just sort of touch it dead and then keep running as fast as you want. And so it looks really different now.
All right,
I
here's
forgot
one.
about offsides. Oh,
Say
sorry.
that again?
I said I forgot about the offsides
Yeah.
rule.
That was
couldn't-
96.
soccer
That
tape,
was,
and you couldn't.
that was later.
You couldn't go past unless you had the ball. You couldn't go past the last defender, just like soccer.
Yeah.
I totally
Yeah.
forgot about that. Wow.
I don't know how long this went, but when I played, there were no subs. And if somebody got injured, you played down.
We play 18 a game now. And I don't even decide. We decide the night before. And then all the students rotate on their own. We make a spreadsheet. And then they just
Really?
sub in and out like a million miles an hour. We figured out that I was making 30 subs a half. And so instead of trying to actually pay attention to that, I couldn't watch the game and do the subs. And so I made an Excel spreadsheet with it, and that's still what we use. The students run it themselves. And so we decide the night before, print out a spreadsheet. If anything goes horribly wrong, we just sort of adjust on the fly. But yeah, it's like pre-planned subs. The the forwards only play for about 6 or 7 minutes at a time. They just go out there and burn themselves out, and then they get off the field. Crazy, huh?
It's a great way to do it, though. That's what the squad does. They're always adjusting their cardiovascular, and that's the right thing. That's how you have to do it today.
But you could only do that if you work at a school like Bucknell, Jim.
I agree. Yeah, and
So let them take care of it.
It's the long game too, right? So it's like we play 18 a game, so that means that we've never had a year where we're playing someone brand new. Like they've always had a little bit of experience playing each position. So it's like, like when Kaylin graduates, we sub Kaylin out every once in a while. We have another student that's been sort of her understudy who gets 10 to 15 minutes a game,
Nice.
And so, when Kaylin graduates, she's got another 2 years. So it'll be hopefully a relatively seamless transition. So there's a lot of benefits to it, but yeah, the educational piece, that's what Bucknell's about. and that's what we've tried to embrace as much as we can. It's not about the hockey, you know. It's all about the hockey, but it's not about the hockey.
Right. Oh, as it should be.
Yeah. Well, cool.
All right, I guess I'll wrap things up. And the first thing I'll say is to Kaylin. Kaylin, thanks a lot for joining us. And I know nothing I say or anybody else says can make you feel any better about not having a fall season. Keep our fingers crossed that maybe playing games in the spring of your senior year. Stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing you here on campus. And for the ladies that joined the call tonight, Jeremy and I knew this was going to be a great call because you are the pioneers of not just Bucknell field hockey, but Bucknell women's athletics. And I'm sure Kaylin's going to take this back, and Jeremy's going to take this back to the other members of the current team and have them watch this session because there's so much to learn from this session. I was fascinated by the rules discussion, and now I don't feel so bad. I mentioned earlier, I've worked in intercollegiate athletics for 32 years, and I had a daughter that played field hockey, and I still don't know the rules. So I don't feel as bad now listening to all the changes that there's been over the years, but I really appreciate you all taking the time out today and everything that you have done and continue to do for Bison Athletics and our current student athletes. And for those of you that joined us at home, thanks for tuning in, and go Bison.